Hello and welcome back to another World of Warcraft Warlords of Draenor video. This time we're going to be talking about PvP gear, PvP rewards, and just some of the changes that they will be making in the next expansion. So yeah, in the video I'll talk about gear, then I'll talk about strong boxes, which are rather cool, and then finally I'll talk about the new tiers that they're adding. And after that I'll just give my opinions on it, and you can jump around the video using the links that you can see on the screen. Anyway, so first of all, yes, gear. Now, they said that in Mists of Pandaria, they added PvP power into the game, and that was there, as we know, to allow PvP gear to perform better than PvE stuff, without exceeding the power of PvE gear in combat. And that was fine, but they think they can do better than that system, because in one or two regards it was a little bit clunky. In Warlords, what they're going to do is remove PvP power and make it so that there is no PvP stat. Instead, what's going to happen is that items will scale up their item level when you enter a PvP area or engage in PvP combat throughout the world. So just to give you an example, let's say you have an item that is level 660 and you're just questing around, that's fine. You have a regular 660 bit of gear. But if that's a PvP piece of gear, then perhaps if you were attacked by another player during your questing, that would jump up in terms of its item level to, say, 690. That means that they can still have the PvP gear be pretty decent in the regular world, but absolutely, be the better bit of gear for PvP content. I think that's a really nice dynamic way of doing it, and I'm kind of pleased with that implementation. I think it's just nice. It's yeah, it's good. Okay, so also they said that in addition to all of this, PvE gear will actually scale up to a minimum item level when you enter PvP. And basically, it's going to have a minimum item level, and this will be lower than the stats of the easiest to acquire PvP gear, but what it's going to mean is that a fresh level 100 character won't be as terrible in PvP as, say, a fresh level 90. I think that's a good way to do things, actually. It puts people on a baseline that's not as ridiculously low, which is fine in my opinion. So overall, this system means that PvE gear no longer needs to be downscaled in PvP. So this basically means that PvE players won't feel like they're getting weaker in PvP, and then also PvP players will feel really strong because they've got the item level scaling up, so when they do partake in the content that they really find enjoyable, boom, they get this nice boost in power. So it sounds like a bit of a win-win. Though they did say on the internet, on Twitter, that right now Mythic PvE gear is actually kind of close to Conquest PvP gear in terms of its item level, so they're looking at downscaling Mythic slightly to ensure the Conquest is the best possible. Though on Twitter they did say that Mythic PvE gear will be better than Honor PvP gear in instanced PvP. So that's interesting, though I think there are probably far more people getting Conquest gear than, say, the amount of people that are regularly running around in Mythic gear, so that should balance out okay. I think that ultimately what matters the most is that the ultra high-end PvP people with the best gear absolutely have the upper hand against the PvE crowd. Okay, so that is how they're going to be handling itemization and that kind of thing. But next they talked a little bit about strong boxes, and this is a new way of getting loot. So they are going to be increasing the reward for random battlegrounds or call to arms battlegrounds. Basically, at the end of the match, you'll get a bronze, silver, or gold lockbox, or possibly all three. And the box that you get will depend on how your team does, but even if you lose a match, you can still get a chance of earning a lockbox, or a strongbox even. They're going to tweak some things in the game to just make it easier to determine what kind of box you'll get. So for an example, Rithai Basin will now end at 1500 points. But what do we care about? Well, we care about what's inside the strong boxes, and they can contain honor, conquest, or gear. And better boxes will have better items, though even if your team is behind, you can still fight on for a chance of getting a better box, so it's going to be worth doing that. It's not going to be like the current method, or, the current period, where if your team's just doing that badly, sometimes it might just be worth your time to quit. Okay, so then also, they're adding in skirmishes to the game. These are basically unranked, match-made arenas, and these are going to have a reward, but they're just not 100% sure on what it might be, though they did say you will be able to earn gear and honor. Okay, so with that tackled, let's talk about new tiers of gear. So they are changing up how PvP gear is in terms of the various tiers of it. So what's going to happen is that they will add in a new one. A new tier. Basically, the reason they're doing it is because they don't like the ever-increasing gap between Honor and Conquest gear. So in Warlords of Draenor, there will be an introductory bit, or an introductory tier of gear, which will be roughly equivalent to today's Honor gear, though you're going to earn it much faster. You will have a high chance with every strongbox that you open to get some of this gear, so you really are going to gear up very quickly. But after that, you will have Veteran gear. Now, there is a small chance of getting Veteran gear from a silver or gold strongbox, though most of the Veteran gear that you have will be purchased using Honor points. And what this Veteran gear does is it means that people who step into rated PvP later on in the season are not as far behind their opponents as they sort of are at the minute, because this basic set of gear will be earned pretty quickly, and then the Veteran gear will be in between. Okay, let's actually, you know what? Great example. So let's just say item level 522 is the current Honor gear, and then 550 or 555 or whatever is the current Conquest gear. Well, Veteran gear is going to be a stepping stone in between the two. So if you are starting off late in the season with that Honor, you know, the worst gear, it will be a little bit easier to contend with the people running around in full Gladiator Conquest gear. I think that's a really good way of doing it, and it puts people on a better baseline in terms of their ability to compete. Another great thing about the way this gear is being done is that you'll be able to get all of your important trinkets and set bonuses rather early, and I think that's a great thing because that's just a part of the toolkit that every PvPer should have access to. Okay, and then as for the max level gear, the Conquest stuff, basically they like how the points have all worked out in Season 15, however they feel that the Conquest cap was a little bit confusing and they're going to make the cap the same between rated battlegrounds and arenas, though we will now be able to use a bonus roll that is the same currency as the PvE bonus roll upon winning a rated battleground. And that will actually give you a chance of getting some Gladiators gear, which is the max level stuff. Overall, I think that's really interesting, and well, what do I think? Time for the opinion section of the video. So it's more progression with this Veteran tier being added into the middle, and I think that progression is going to have pretty meaningful gameplay in it, because the strong boxes are, in my opinion, quite fun. Then you have the Honor sort of grind, I guess, that you have now, and then moving up into Conquest. So there's another tier of stuff to do there, but what's nice about the Veteran gear being slotted in between the current Honor item level and Conquest item level is it just bridges that gap between the two, so when you are in an arena, things are just a little bit, gear-wise, more fair, especially later on into the season, and I think that's just going to make PvP a lot more accessible in a pretty good way. And the same thing goes for the PvE gear scaling up to a minimum level in PvP. That's going to help people get in the bat at the very start in their skirmishes and unrated battlegrounds, you know, just the regular random ones. So I think that's all very good. The easier in will help a lot for PvP, and I believe it was a recent demographic, I think about 15 or 20% of the population are PvP, so it would be really nice to increase that and make it so that everyone can have a reasonable shot of doing everything, though of course while still maintaining the current system of PvP gear being best in PvP and PvE being best in PvE, which is absolutely the way that it should be. So in terms of rewards, I think the boxes are actually a lot more fun than the current thing that we have going on. They're much less deterministic. They're always like a fun random little thing you get at the end of a battleground, and I think that's going to be quite nice. And even if you lose, you still have a chance of getting one. So I think that's a good consolation prize, and perhaps that would cut down the amount of people that leave battlegrounds and that kind of thing. So that could have some positive benefits on the gameplay. Then also skirmishes I think are really nice, just a casual way to do an arena. I love that, so perfect, I'm in. That's really nice to see. And then finally, this whole item level scaling up it's pretty nifty, I guess. On Twitter, they did say that world bosses are going to be affected by this in a tiny bit, because if a bunch of people are running around in PvP gear and they're fighting a world boss and then they get hit by a player, their PvP gear will scale up, so it'll be more powerful against that world boss. But they said that, yeah, they're aware of this being an issue, but world bosses are meant to be defeated in not a terribly difficult manner anyway, so it's a case that they don't particularly care about. I don't think it would really ever be worth min-maxing that much just for the sake of a world boss, really. overall, I think this is a nice system. It's got me enthused for PvP, certainly. I think that it's just a better reward system for everyone than what we have at the minute with, you know, having the really, really bad crafted set, and then the pretty good honor set, and then, you know, moving up to the conquest set, which is radically more powerful than anything else. So, yeah, I think this should definitely help out with PvP, and overall be a pretty good thing. Anyway, that's me done talking. So what do you guys think about the changes? Do you think they're good or bad, or you just don't give a shit? It would be interesting to know. Anyway, that's it for the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.